Stacy Schiff, The Revolutionary, Samuel Adams. Dive into the life of an unconventional revolutionary, Samuel Adams. Discover the origins of his political calling, and follow his journey from the struggles of his early life to his emergence as an influential figure for the people of Massachusetts. Combating British rule, Adams leveraged his education and personal convictions to fight against unfair taxation and advocate for colonial self-governance. This summary will take you through the events that shaped Samuel Adams, the power of collective resistance, and his contributions in shaping the destiny of the United States.
The rise of Samuel Adams. After his father's death, Samuel Adams was left with a hefty debt and a looming threat of losing his family's home. Despite a classical education and multiple degrees, Samuel had struggled to find professional success, but he valued his privacy and ideals above all else. When England dissolved the land bank, causing chaos for Massachusetts business owners and farmers, Samuel found his motivation. He became a powerful adversary of English rule, using his intelligence and compassion to fight for the colony's interests. Samuel Adams, who had nothing to lose, rose to become one of the most influential figures in Boston's political history. Samuel Adams, a voice against British rule. In 1748, Samuel Adams founded the Independent Advertiser, a newspaper that published anonymous articles against British rule. Adams believed that by constantly and loudly speaking up for Massachusetts's interests, he could unite the colonies and bring about real change. The newspaper covered the violent uprising against Admiral Knowles's British crew, which gave Adams a taste of the power of collective resistance. His writing focused on the discrimination the people faced as colonial subjects when it came to matters of self-governance. Adams believed that his private letters could be used against him or his network, so he often burned them after reading. His concern for the safety of his friends surpassed his desire for a place in history. The ideas expressed in the newspaper, including the balance of power and taxation without representation, were voiced and argued by an unknown writer, likely Adams himself. Adams's writing drew attention because it was deeply partisan with a true bias against British rule, at a time when newspapers largely published official reports. The Crown's dissolution of the Land Bank in 1741 revealed that the interests of the colony and those of the King and Parliament were quite opposed. However, Adams had grasped this fact very early and used his newspaper to persuade Massachusetts constantly and loudly for their interests, which might forge a solidarity that could bring about real change. Samuel Adams, the master of finesse. Samuel Adams, a leading American patriot, took up a public tax collector position amidst financial hardship, building a network by granting dispensations and arguing against collections, a move that was well received by Bostonians. His natural ability to persuade people earned him a seat in the House of Representatives, placing him at the center of a looming political storm. Samuel Adams was a leading figure in the American Revolution and a patriot responsible for many of the events leading up to the rebellion against British rule. Despite having mostly paid off his debts, Samuel's pleas to consider evidence were ignored by a committee appointed by the English government to assign debt to the original borrowers and their heirs. He decided to take up the position of a public tax collector, an unpopular and unprofitable post but one that would alleviate his financial troubles. By doling out dispensations and arguing against collections after local disasters, he built up a network whose loyalty would prove crucial. Adams's election to the House of Representatives in 1769 further cemented his position, giving him the platform to voice ideas that resonated with Bostonians across social classes. He was a master of finesse, a compelling orator whose influence was felt by all. Adams's life story provides a valuable lesson on the power of persuasive ideas, persistence, and the ability to be in the right place at the right time. The spark of resistance. The passage discusses the events that led Samuel Adams to turn towards independence. The Sugar Act of 1764, which taxed colonial sugar imports, raised the concern over taxation without representation. Benjamin Franklin noted that the colonies were already enriching London merchant coffers by restricting trade. Adams used his newspaper to condemn the injustice of taxation on citizens based on birth. Then, news of the Stamp Act arrived, which required all paper to be purchased with a royal stamp. Adams confronted the act through official channels while engineering a different response along with his back-channel network. British officials soon realized the precariousness of their position when the Stamp Act became impossible to collect without troops to squash violent resistance. This act united the American colonies against British dominance, leading to a spark of resistance and the beginning of a journey towards independence. Adams' fight for colonial rights. After repealing the Stamp Act, Adams recognized the lack of beneficial intention in Parliament and the King's actions toward the colonies. To counter misinformation in London and increase transparency and solidarity in government, Adams organized the building of a public gallery in the House of Representatives and hired an agent to present colonial viewpoints. When the House was kept from convening by the governor and the Townshend Act was imposed, Adams encouraged a boycott of taxable imports and penned letters to English noblemen and the king himself, arguing for self-governance. Although his idea was met with shock, Adams persuaded the representatives to vote in favor of circulating his letter widely, resulting in significant resistance against the English government's attempts to tax the colonies. The night that ignited the revolution. In the book, we learn about the events leading up to the start of the American Revolution. On the evening of April 18, 1775, the British officers stationed in Boston whispered an order to counter the growing resistance in the colonies, motivating Paul Revere to set out on horseback to warn his patriot friends. Samuel Adams, a key figure in the formation of resistance, had already planned for such a scenario and had formed a network of spies, which kept him and his comrade, John Hancock, one step ahead of British intelligence. Despite several attempts by the British to rid themselves of Adams, he continued to push for revolution, leading to the start of the American Revolution.
Samuel Adams's life is a testament to the power of persistence, courage, and the fight for justice in the face of immense adversity. Despite countless setbacks and struggles, he emerged as a seminal figure in the American struggle for independence. Adams demonstrated the importance of harnessing collective power and using it to challenge oppressive institutions. As an avid believer in self-governance and civil rights, his efforts played a critical role in raising awareness of the plight of the colonies and in igniting the revolutionary spark that would eventually change the course of history.